So, hello cyberheads. I welcome you all to our channel CyberTab, which is all about cybersecurity and information security under one tab. So, this will be our first video on the channel, and likewise, you must have seen in the title, we'll be going through the basic concepts of Linux, not only theoretical part, but also we'll be doing a quick hands-on lab on it, in which we'll be using Ubuntu operating system, right? And since this is our first interaction, so before moving forward, I would like to tell you like what is CyberTab, who I am, what are you trying to achieve with CyberTab, and what CyberTab community is. So I'm just like you. I am a cybersecurity engineer, and I work in the offensive and defensive side of security both. And by CyberTab, we are trying to build an open source community where we all can come together at a single place and learn new skills, develop new skills, stay updated to what is going on in the cyber world, right? Because it is changing every day, every hour, and start from the very beginning who are just trying to break in, and for those who are already into the industry, want to learn some new concepts, some new tools, some new technologies, right? So this is in a nutshell that we are trying to build, and that is why it is known as under one tab. We are trying to bring all of it and more of it under one tab, under one channel, right? And in the intro video, you must have seen what all we are looking forward to, and that is not limited to it only. And by CyberTab community, I'll just give you a quick walkthrough of what we so far have worked upon. So we have a LinkedIn page as well. Right now, we have just started a LinkedIn page with the name of CyberTab, and feel free to come and check out the post on the LinkedIn page and follow the LinkedIn page for new updates, because most of the resources that I'll be using, or most of the resources of CyberTab customized resources, will be dropped here. As far as we do not get any uh, Discord server, we go on to any Discord server, or we go on to any other page. So till then, we have this page, LinkedIn page, right? And we also have a Twitter handle with the name of CyberTab, with the username of underscore CyberTab, right? And we do have a couple of posts here, and we'll be posting the link to the video here as well. And I'll drop all the links to the channels and pages in the description. Feel free to come and look into the pages and channel what they look like. Feel free to follow, like, right? And you must be wondering what are these posts and where they have come from. So apparently we do have our own website which is hosted on GitHub pages, right? And we do post some of the articles in some weeks, or some weeks it takes some like 2 weeks, 3 weeks, sometimes in a week we do post some of the articles. The recent article is unpacking ransomware, the anatomy of a malicious attack. So you can come here, read the articles. Like, it is very methodical in nature, very beginner friendly, but as soon as you move down, yes, the level of it increases. So you can feel free to check it out, right? And you do have the option to go and check out the categories. Tags are there, so in case you want to look into phishing email generate tag, right, then you have an article which is on chat gpt, right? So how this article is about how we have generated a phishing email using chat gpt prompts, right? These are the archives, these are the timelines of the articles and the about post, right? So these three, the LinkedIn page, the website, and the Twitter handle, we have in the community so far. So I would request you all to go onto these pages and follow them, like them, drop a comment how you feel about them. And obviously we have the YouTube channel, right? So you can search CyberTab anytime and you can come onto the CyberTab channel, right? So coming back to our course. So what can we expect from this course, and how we are going to move into the course as it move further. So this one thing I like to make it clear, right? So there is no need for you to screenshot, or there is no need for you to make notes as far as the fundamentals are concerned, because the whole mind map, I'll be sharing it in a PNG high quality form, so you can have the picture in your mobile phone handy and you can look into it anytime, right? And if you have this picture or PDF, one pager I call it, because we are trying to consolidate and keep it concise as possible, right? So we have made it under one page. So if you have it, you have almost 95% of the fundamentals of Linux, like what is Linux, why we have to use Linux, what are the Linux distributions, what are the operating systems based on Linux distributions, command line commands, which are, I suppose I will check, which are categorized based on different prompts. So for example, you want commands for text files, right? So there will be text file commands, I'll show you, right? For example, uh, if you want to know the terminology, you have the terminology here. If you want to know command based on file extensions, you have it here. You can further move ahead. You want network commands, you can get it here. So these are the top 4-5 commands that you can work on. Don't worry, we'll be doing most of them in the hands-on lab, and most of them will be either explained in the theoretical part or in the hands-on lab. So stay tuned. And also, uh, sometimes the theoretical part seems to be pretty boring, but I will make sure it does not sound boring, but it is important for a beginner, right? So in the beginning I said this course or is this video is meant for someone not only who is already into the industry, who wants to freshen up his or her skills, but for the one who does not even know what Linux is, right? So we are covering it from the scratch, and we are covering it some of the top misconceptions or questions, or the fundamentals we should say, that needs to be clear at the very first stage, and then we'll be moving on to the hands-on lab. So don't worry, if you don't know what Linux is, you will know much of about Linux along with the touch of one of its operating system, Ubuntu, and you'll know by the end of this video, you'll get comfortable using command line as well, right? So moving ahead, I'll be opening up this mind map. I'll not dictate the whole paragraph because you will be having those in your mobile phones or laptops. You can have a look at it. But what I will be doing is I'll be explaining some of the key concepts which are the most important. For example, is Linux an operating system or is Linux a kernel? If it is a kernel, is it a software or a hardware? Right? How does it work? And like, what are the distributions of Linux? Then what are the operating systems based on it? What are the differences between them? So we'll try to cover as much as we can, and then we'll move on to the hands-on lab, right? So moving forward, what is Linux? The big question comes up. So as we move on, I'll just unfold these, the four major parts: Linux, kernel, Linux versus Unix, and is kernel is equals to BIOS, right? So I guess you can see the screen. So now, so moving on, what we were discussing is earlier the Linux was looked upon as a black screen, a CLI command screen, right? But as the time moved forward, right? So the GUI improved a lot, right? What is GUI? GUI is something that you are currently looking at on your screen. GUI is this, that you can press the button and it will do certain tasks, right? So this is the GUI. And what is command line? Command line is something that is a CLI, which we call it in Linux. Then we have it in Windows and Mac as well, in which you give the commands and certain actions happen, right? So this was the image of Linux earlier, but now it has changed a lot. But moving back to the history a bit, how it started, what it is, just a brief, quick intro to it is will be so. So Linux happens to be an open source operating system, right? So we'll discuss upon what if it is an operating system or what, right? So it was created by Linus Torvalds in 1991 as a free alternative proprietary system, right? So why he created it? Earlier we used to have Unix, right, which was first made, but it had some limitations. One of the major limitation was the use of it, right? So to use it, uh, license was required, and not all the people were able to get the license, or it was not as flexible as Linux is, or Linux turned out to be in future. So Linus Torvald wanted to make an operating system, so he made an operating system based on Unix. uh, Initially he started as an hobby project, but he let the operating system as a free, under free license, right? I'll show you what type of licenses are also, so nothing will be left uncovered, right? So then why it got popular was because of its stability and security that it used to provide, and the flexibility. And one thing I would like to add on is the customizability. Why? Because the source code was available to all, right? So you can make your changes into the operating system, right? Make your changes into the code, into the operating system, and use it as you can until you until you're compliant to the license that is free in nature, right? So yes, how it turned out to be a glass breaker. So it started being used in a lot of servers, a lot of supercomputers eventually, smartphones and embedded devices, right? Because of the speed it offers, right? Because of the low computational power that offers. So now what computational power is? Whenever you hear something like computational power, there are only three major components are involved. One is RAM, one is CPU, and one is hard disk. So any operating system requires certain amount of RAM, CPU, and hard disk in the initial phase, right? And then when we run applications on it, so it differs how much RAM, CPU utilization, and hard disk does it require to make that application run in a proper way, which differs. For example, the top three operating systems that are Windows, Linux, and Mac, right? So it became popular because of it, because of low computational powers as well, right? Then I will just erase it. So there were certain pros and cons to it. Just a quick intro into it so we can just see what are the pros and cons into it. There were lots of pros, but there were certain cons as well at the same time. First, it was open source. Obviously, we have discussed it already. The stability and security that it was providing to us, the customization because of the open source nature, that anyone in this world can pick up the code, customize it in his or her own way, and use it, right? And it happened to be compatible with the other hardware. So earlier, what problem people were facing? So if they have a mainframe mainframe computer, right, or any computer or that they buy from any vendor, right? So if any part stops working, so they have to buy from the same vendor, right? That was the foundation to the whole machine that they have bought. But uh, similarly, it happened to the operating systems of that time as well, that they were not interoperable, like they were not interoperable to other hardwares or other operating systems, right? So but it Linux gave you that flexibility. It was low power. Here the low power means the use of actual power, the electricity, right? Because it is also concerned when used in a large scale, right? And the computational power as well. So once the computational power decreases, which means the use of RAM, CPU, and hard disk decreases, the performance of the servers automatically increases, right? So for those who the server term is very new to them, in the layman language, what we can understand is your machine, supposedly running on Windows, right? So it can make a request, right, to a web server, which is also similar to your machine. It can be running on Linux, it can be running on any other operating system. But the only difference is there is a software installed on it, which we call usually as a server hosted on it, right? And yes, there are certain configurations involved, right? The only difference is this is your machine can make the request only, but the server is capable of making the request and responding back to the request, right? So it is nothing but a machine with a software installed on it. In a very layman language, I'm saying software, we can say that Windows server comes in the market. It's just like a simple operating system parallel to your operating system that you use, right? So the only capability which makes it differ is that it has a capability to respond to the request, right? So coming back, so these things, yes, the video might get a little bit long, but I want to make it clear for the beginner's perspective, like in a layman language, what these terms are, right? So it was free, or we can say very less costly, uh, or at no cost, right? And has a large community of developer right now. So these are the pros of it, right? So these are the reasons that it is this much of popular. This is the reason that it is this much of flexible, stable, right? And there are different distributions of it. About the distribution, we'll be talking into the lower block, right? And then we have some cons as well. So what are the cons? Steeper learning curve, right? Yes, for those who are using Windows for 10 years, for those who are using Mac for 10 plus years, when you suddenly bump into a different operating system, it is like in your smartphone as well. When you're using Android, then you after 5-10 years you suddenly bump into iPhone, right? It takes a couple of months for you to get adjusted into it. So similar is the case with the Linux, right? No big deal. The commercial support is less. Yes, this is a con because the Windows is meant for more for the commercial side because you buy the license. Obviously, people use the pirated Windows, which is illegal, but Windows is more on a commercial side. You buy the license, so you get the support as well from them, right? But it is not the case in the Linux since it is open source. There is a fragmentation issue as there are a lot of distributions available, so you have to look into it. What distribution actually meets your need. Uh, just a very layman example before we run into the distribution block. Uh, for offensive security, right? If you want to do the offensive security stuff, people the go-to operating system for people is Kali Linux, right? So this is the fragmentation case. So likewise, there are lots of distributions available. So sometimes when there are lots of options available, you get confused, right? So this is the case here, and not well supported in the gaming industry. Obviously, it has not has made its foothold in the gaming industry so far. Just a very quick overview of what different types of licenses are there in the whole IT world, right? One is proprietary license. I will ask you to just go through this whole mind map once we are done with this video. Just a high level go through this mind map so we get to you it fits into your mind, right? So you don't forget it after the video. So there is a proprietary license, obviously, which is owned by a specific company and the usage is restricted. The best example is Windows, right? So they sell the license. Then there is an open source license, which is of which the code is available. Right? Example, general public license. Under a general public license, Linux is available. Free software license, which is similar to the open source license, not much of a difference. Then we have a like free software license, such as making the software available for free. So obviously the self-explanatory. Shareware license we have, it allows users to try the operating system before purchasing it, right? It is as simple as getting a software. Like I have this software right now, right? So it is allowing me to use the software, but I haven't purchased it, right? So there are two conditions majorly. Either I will not get the full features until I buy it, or it is available with full features but for a certain period of time. So this is a shareware license, right? Then academic licenses, obviously you get some discount on Office 365 when you have a .edu mail, right? So this type of license is academic license, right? Moving on. So the kernel part, right? I'll just go through this very quick because I'll make some diagrams to just make you more understand what really it means, right? So what kernel is, uh, firstly, it is a software, right? It manages the system hardware resources, provides a platform for running software programs. Core component of operating system takes care of the input output operation management processes and controls the resource allocation, right? Just stay with me for next 2-3 minutes, right? Then we have a question that is Linux versus Unix. Is Linux and Unix same? No, but Linux is based on Unix, right? But how it is different? Obviously, Unix has a proprietary license, and it was developed in pretty much earlier than Linux, right? And they do have a different kernels to manage the hardware, the resource allocation, memory, input output operations, right? And different architectures and different community, right? Then just stay with me for the next 2 minutes. Everything will be cleared if there is any partial confusion in it. So one more thing, is kernel is equals to BIOS. You must have heard the term BIOS in your operating system, right? You might not heard the kernel term, but I'm sure you might have heard the BIOS term as well. So BIOS is a firmware that is installed in computer's motherboard, right? At a low level hardware control. I'll tell you what it is. It initializes and tests hardware before passing the control to bootloader. The bootloader loads the operating system kernel to memory. Once the kernel is loaded, it starts managing, it starts doing its work. So the kernel interacts with the BIOS to access the hardware, right? Just stay with me for two 2 minutes, right? Okay. So we were talking about a lot about kernel, BIOS, this and that. So now we'll see how does it actually look like, right? So this is our hardware, right? Where our RAM, CPU, motherboard, right? Wi-Fi card, which is known as NIC, right, in IT terms, and hard disk, and multiple other components sits, right? So, and what kernel is? Kernel somewhere sits here, right? What operating system is? Operating system somewhere sits here. Where application sits? Somewhere here. Just give me a second. So how does these things work? So as I termed, this is kernel. This is any operating system, right? Any operating system. It can be Windows, sorry, it can be Windows, it can be Linux, or anything, right? So this is your hardware of the laptops. Suppose this is the hardware of your laptop, and you buy these things from the market: RAM, CPU, motherboard, this and that. Will your if you just install the operating system on it, will it work? No, actually, you will not be able to install it. How does it actually work? In the high level overview, there is a BIOS, which is also a low level control. I should say software because it involves instructions, right? So there is a BIOS here, which is installed on the motherboard. BIOS, wait a second, just adjust it. Okay, BIOS installed in motherboard, right? We'll change the color to this. It looks okay. And in between this, there is a bootloader. Just a second. There's a bootloader, right? Just one more component. If you understand this, right? Just though it is a very high level overview, but if you understand this, you will understand how actually any operating system looks like, right? So these are your applications that run on your operating system. It can be any, right? So how the flow works, I'll show you now. Just a second. Okay. Okay. So when you make any request, like you press this button on your laptop, right? You press this button on your laptop that I want to switch on my laptop. So the power supply goes into the hardware, right? The BIOS that is already installed in the motherboard. So it is already installed in the motherboard. It comes installed, right? And it is nothing but say a simple software, right, with certain amount of instruction. What instructions are there? There are certain parameters that it checks, right, before moving ahead. Like it tests the RAM, tests the CPU, tests the motherboard working, and there are certain parameters, right? And once it is done, it loads the BIOS instructions into the bootloader, right? Then bootloader is nothing but it is meant for loading the kernel into the memory block, right? So again, clearing the confusion, this is our hardware. This is the BIOS installed on it under the hardware that is in the motherboard. So once you click the power button, the BIOS checks all the hardware checks and tells the bootloader that I am good to go, right? So now what is the work of kernel? Why is it sitting between the operating system and these two things, or as a collectively as a hardware? So it is responsible for all the process management that happens in your operating system. Like if you run Slack, right? So it decides how much memory, that is RAM, will be allocated to it, how much CPU utilization will be allocated to it, and there is one more thing which is known as memory location, right? Memory allocation. So in this memory allocation, there are certain algorithms, right, which are used to allocate the memory, which is out the scope of this video, right? One of which is round robin algorithm, right? So kernel is as important as anything in the laptop. Make sure if someone asks you whether kernel is a software or hardware, tell them it is a software. What does it do? Tell them it does the process management, it does the memory management, it does the input output management, right? It does the memory allocation. These are the four main things that it does, right? But for kernel to do all of these things, it has to be in the memory, right? This is the memory block in the operating system. Oh, sorry. This is the memory block in the hardware. So how the flow goes? You turn on the power button, hardware moves on to the BIOS, BIOS does some checks, BIOS says I'm good to go, bootloader will say, okay kernel, I will load you into the memory block, right? Till here, it is loaded into the memory block, right? Now, it interacts with the operating system because the kernel has been loaded into the memory block. It is capable of process management, memory allocation, and several other things, input output management, and several other things. So it boots the operating system. So when it starts the operating system and gives it all the necessary computational power and the instruction that is required. And once it is booted up, the applications are visible to you, which you have already installed. So for example, you double click on Zoom, right? You double click on Zoom, kernel will take care of how much memory will be allocated to Zoom, which means the RAM, which depends on different parameters. It will take care of if 10 applications are running, which will be the first one having the most amount of RAM, which will be stored in cache memory, or which will be not, right? So this is the importance of kernel. It does the four main parts, right? Process goes like power button, hardware, BIOS checks the parameters, it says bootloader to good to go, then bootloader loads the kernel into memory block, then it interacts with the operating system and does the operations normally, right? So what Linus Torvald did, he made the kernel, right? Because this is available in the market, and this part, till this part, he took care of Linus Torvald, right? So he gave you the kernel, he gave the community the kernel on which anyone can write any type of code. So this is a kind of template, I should say, in a layman language, but saying it template will not be right, okay? But to make it understand, it is like a template in which you can come and write the code and develop an operating system. Simple is that. So many people came, different operating systems were created, some of which went popular, some of which didn't went popular of some reason, some of which went popular to the user friendly, some of which went popular to the server usage, some of which went popular for hacking, right? So these all are called distributions, right? distributions. These are all are called distributions. I'll give you another example just to clear it off before we move on to the mind map. So kernel is there, right? Then on this kernel, we make different operating system. But before that, people made different distributions. It is known as distros also, distros. So they made different distributions, or which we can also call as categories. So one of them category was Debian based. So what in layman term we can say, there was a kernel out of which there was a template made out of it again, and on this template different operating systems were made, and this template was called Debian. So several templates were made, and which were called distributions like Debian based distribution, CentOS, and many other. These distribution names might be new to us, to me, to you, because there are lots of tons of operating systems out there, right? But very few are popular, or very few are of great usage. So one of the template was Debian, and out of which different operating system came out. One was Kali Linux, and one was Ubuntu. And on Ubuntu, we'll be practicing it, right? So here it is clear that how the whole computer works till the operating system layer. How kernel works, what is the usage of kernel. Don't worry if you have not noted it, because I myself have not written it here. It is already in the mind map, right? So no problem for that. The whole thing is there, that how whatever I have iterated, it is there in it, right? It is just for the understanding. So there were different templates, and out of which different operating systems were created, right? So we'll just move on to the mind map very quickly and finish it off before we go on to the exciting part, that is lab, right? So we have already answered most of the questions. Is kernel is equals to BIOS? No, obviously they were two different things. You can read it out. Linux versus Unix we did. What is kernel? The whole thing is here, right? What we'll do is fold this, right? Then there's a question. I'll go through this very quickly because you can find it out and read it out on your own. There's no rocket science in this. And why we need to use Linux? There are certain features which are repetitive in nature, which because we have already talked about it. The versatility, flexibility, cost-effective nature, open source community, and renowned for security. Right? So these are the main features because of it that we should go for the Linux. But the main part is, why should we go for the Linux? As to learn it, because we are looking to learn those things or skills which are industry demanded, right? So how is it industry demanded? It can be seen by the statistics, right? So let's see what statistics says. I'm not sure if you can see this. I'll just zoom it in. Give me a second. Okay, cool. This much of zoom it is. Sorry for that. Okay. So Linux is used in various industries. When we say various industries, it is large industries. For example, New York Stock Exchange trading platform. Big industry, big platform, Linux is used, and various other industries it is used. Now, what this means, it should make you clear that how big it is. It is saying that for top 500 supercomputers, right? In each one of that project, or in each one of those supercomputer, Linux is used. By Linux, we mean Linux kernel is used. We should remember that with Linux kernel, there were certain templates which we called as distributions, and there was further of each distribution, there were different operating systems, right? Then desktop Linux has a desktop market of around 2%. Yes, because of use of market capture of Windows and Mac OS. But the server market is around 33%, which is pretty huge, right? Which is pretty huge. Also, it is widely, so we all know that we are moving towards cloud, right? And Linux is widely used in cloud computing and containerization. This is a technology, right? And hopefully I'll be making a video on it as well. So it is used in cloud computing and containerization, such as AWS and Microsoft Azure are the two big cloud providers, right? And the versatility, obviously, and the cost-effective nature makes it attractive to the market. So these are the things that makes it industry demanded. Not only this, if you want to break into the cybersecurity, knowing Linux or knowing Linux to the at least intermediate level is a must, right? You want to get into information security, you will have some time in your career that you will encounter the use of Linux, right? So we are making sure that you will not face any problem in that encounter. Just stay with us, right? We are done with the why Linux part. Now we have just the distribution because the command line I will show you only, and because we will be already doing it in the hands-on lab, then there's no point of just going through it. Then commonly supported file extension, I'll just go through it as well. Since the distribution part has already been explained, it will be easier for us to grab it, right? So when I said that there is a kernel, right, and there were different categories which were known as distribution 1, distribution 2, distribution, sorry about that, distribution 3, right? And out of each distribution there were multiple operating system. Simple. Over. Nothing of that, nothing below that. This is it. So there is a Linux kernel. There are different Linux distribution. For example, Debian. For example, Ubuntu itself is considered as a distribution. Fedora, CentOS, Arch Linux, Red Hat Enterprise Linux, SUSE Linux, and much more distributions are there, right? And each distribution has its own feature, I should say, has its own USP, has its own unique selling point, right? For example, for Debian, it is stable and popular Linux distribution and robust package system. And for, I should say, we'll go for the RHEL. It is a commercial Linux distribution with long-term support and security updates. So when you, whosoever knows a little bit of Linux, they must have heard about RHEL. They'll give you a certification as well, right? So it is a commercial, it provides servers, right? It provides servers which are based on Red Hat Enterprise Linux. And obviously if they are giving commercial support, they will be giving the updates and all, right? So there are different distributions, and a lot of distributions are there in the market. So on every distribution, multiple operating system is developed. So this whole map is there. I'll show you. So for Debian, we were talking about which operating systems are there: Ubuntu, Kali Linux, Linux Mint, Raspbian, etc. Always remember etc. because it is an open source, so it is not limited. Then for Fedora, how many operating systems are there? Fedora was what? A template just of a Linux kernel, which is just a distribution, right? So under this there are different operating system, which is CentOS, Oracle Linux, Enterprise Linux, Red Hat, right? Then we have Arch Linux as distribution, under which there are different operating systems, which are Garuda, Manjura, Endeavor operating system, right? So the flow is again the simple distributions and different operating systems. This is the kernel, right? This is the main kernel that has been provided. The source code of this is available easily, right? Amazing. If you have reached this far, you already know what Linux is. It's just a matter of couple of minutes or half an hour, I guess. I don't know how long this video will be exactly. You will walk out as a without fear of the command line black screen, and you will be able to answer 95% of the questions, and the concepts will be clear in your head. And we'll go on to the commonly supported file extensions. So it is for your convenience, right? The mind map has been made in categorized form. So if you want to see what are the commonly supported file extension for audio files, for example, so it is mp3.wav.ogg. I don't know if you can see this, but if we yeah, so again for archive files, video files, just like in our Windows it is mp4, flv, so in Debian based. So here what we are talking about, make sure you just pay attention. We're not talking about Linux, we're talking about Linux distribution, which is a Debian. So any operating system which is based on Debian, right, will follow this, right? So this mind map will be available, no worries about it. Different extension. And the command line, again, I showed you a bit. Oh my god, already it is opened up. So we can see the terminology, what is shell, sudo, terminal, command prompt, command line. So all of this will be briefed to you in the hands-on lab, right? And in the file management commands, if you want to look into it, ls, cp, mv. So this is very handy document. Believe me, very handy document. You have everything in your pocket, right? So I guess we are done here, right? So this will be provided to you. Uh, just make sure you go to the channel and obviously subscribe. But before moving, I will just give you a brief overview of what virtualization is, because it is as important as anything, because the cloud runs on it. Virtualization, I wanted to make a separate video on it, but this video itself requires the concept to be cleared, right? So if I say you, this is the hardware, right? And you want to, for example, you have 24 GB of RAM, right? And you're running Windows operating system on it. So even if you make it a very high usage, you will be barely using 16 GB of the RAM, out of which 8 GB will be free always, right? Similar is the case with CPU and hard disk. Obviously you have free of it. So if I tell you, you can install an operating system, like here operating system, it is Windows. Over this you can install another operating system, which can be any, which can be another Windows operating system, which can be a Linux operating system, right? Which can be any operating system. This is possible by the technology named as virtualization. Make sure that the concepts and the terminologies that you use are correct. Virtualization is a technology, right? And there are two types of software. Make sure it is software. Hypervisor, hypervisor 1, hypervisor 2, right? If you understood till here, don't worry if this has brainstormed your head, just stay with me. Virtualization is a technique or technology which is used to segregate. You know what segregate means? To divide. All of which, this I'm talking in layman term to make you understand, right? Some of the technical terms might not be fully correct, but this is fully correct, right? Which requires it to be fully correct. I'm making my best. So what virtualization does is segmentation of computational power. So computational power we have already discussed is CPU, RAM, and hard disk. So when it does this, it also takes care of the network part, right? So network, for network there will be a different series, right? But I'll just give you gist of it so we can work on it. So we can work on VMware or virtualization tool, any of the tool. So we have a question that if we want to install an operating system over an operating system, so how do we do it? Obviously we will need a software out of it, right? So this is one of the hypervisor, like hypervisor 1 and one hypervisor 2. One of it allows you to install the operating system on the other. So this hypervisor software is distributed by different vendors by different name. One is VMware, one is VirtualBox. So these are of two types. One for our workstations, like small computers, and one for our simple hardware, right? And we install just virtualization on it, just virtualization software on it, and we divide the computer resources. This is out of the scope of video. Leave it, right? So we will be using VMware, right, to install the operating system, because obviously when you install an operating system you have to allocate some RAM, you have to allocate some CPU, you have to allocate some disk space. So for that to happen, you need to install a software with or you need to install a hypervisor on it, right? And it is installed somewhere here, and over which you install the new operating system, right? So we will be meeting in the next phase, that is in the hands-on lab. The tough part has already been done, right? Kudos to you, right? So we have come this far, and the now exciting part, the hands-on part where you can follow along, has come. Don't worry, any of the link that I have talked about will be given in the description. The mind map will be given in the description. Any of the tools that we will be installing in the future, or the next phase in this video only, the link to it will be given in the description, right? And each and every part step will be iterated properly so as to make you understand. And for those who already know the installation part, who already know the other part, they can feel free to move on to the command line arguments that we will be doing into it, right? But this part, mind my part, was important, so I'm happy you guys stayed till here. Let's meet into the hands-on part. Welcome back, cyberheads, to CyberTab again. So if you have made it this far, amazing, kudos to you. Now the exciting part is going to start, that is hands-on lab that we will be doing simultaneously. You can do it while you watch it, or you can watch it and then you can perform it, right? Also, that you must be wondering that what is it on my screen? Is it an operating system? How is it running on an application? How is it running on an existing Windows operating system on my machine? Everything will be answered, everything will be walked through, so you can do it by yourself. Also, we'll move forward in our Linux course as well. We'll learn pretty much about the GUI of it, that what is ISO file, how to use VMware, the basic commands of Linux, how to get the files done, how to make directory, and pretty much other commands that are necessary to start with the Linux, right? So moving forward, when we were talking about in the initial phase of the video, or in the initial phase of the course, we discussed about the hypervisors, right? So just to clarify, and not getting deep into it because it is out of the scope of the video, there are two types of hypervisor. One is hypervisor 1, second is hypervisor 2, right? Hypervisor 1 requires an Hypervisor 2 requires an operating system below it, right, to get installed over it, and it can be used further. Now, making it simple, I am using a Windows machine. I install a hypervisor named as VMware Workstation Pro, which is hypervisor 2. Why? Because it gets installed on my Windows operating system, right? And then inside the VMware Workstation Pro, I can make multiple virtual machines, dividing my computing power. Simple as that. And for hypervisor 1, you don't need any operating system, just like I talked about that I need in Windows or Linux or any of the operating system to install it on. It gets installed on the bare metal. It is also known as bare metal. So it gets installed on the hardware in itself, and whichever vendor hypervisor you use, it provides you the GUI, right? So you can access the hypervisor and allocate the computing power accordingly to your enterprise or your company, right? So hypervisor 1, we are not talking about, we're not dealing with. Hypervisor 2, which sits on the operating system, gets installed on the operating system, allowing us to make different virtual machines. We will be dealing with it, right? So initially also we talked about VMware and VirtualBox. There are two types of, these are the two popular virtualization softwares, right? It is also called virtualization softwares. It provides you, I'll drop down these links in the description so you can come and download it directly. And yes, there will be two files that you will be required to download in order to follow or do the lab. One is the VMware or VirtualBox, and second is the Ubuntu ISO file. I'll tell you what it is and how to download it, right? So they provide, the VMware provides the pro version as well, and for this course I don't think it is necessary. If you have it, good enough, right? If you don't have it, you won't face any problems, right? And it is a very good example of shareware license that we have talked about earlier in the course as well, that they provide you unlimited usage, not defined in terms of days, right? But they limit the functionality, a little bit of functionality that you get after purchasing the pro license, right? So you can come on here, you can just click also when you're downloading it, make sure that you're downloading it for your right Windows, right host operating system. I am sorry, right? So don't get confused here when you come here, assuming that you have a Windows operating system running currently. Don't get confused like you will be working on Linux, so you have to download the VMware workstation for Linux. No, this means that what is your host operating system? For me, I am running Windows, so my host operating system is Windows. After which, it does not matter what virtual machine I install on it, be it Linux, be it any Windows server, be it any Apache server, it does not matter, right? So for me, the host operating system is Windows. I will download it, right? I guess the language has changed, but it is the download button for sure. Taking time. Okay, I'll try to refresh it. Okay, okay. So it started downloading 2-3 times. So I'll just pause it out. Yes. So I'll drop down this link. Just download the virtualization software. It is of 600 MBs. Right. I have already downloaded it. So uh, I have already installed it also. That I showed you the Ubuntu operating system. But no worries. I'll walk you through the downloading process, the installation process of VMware, installation process of the operating system as well. And the other option you have is the Oracle VirtualBox. No difference in terms of functionality. They do pretty much both the same things, right? It's just that the vendor here is Oracle, the vendor here is VMware, right? So I'll drop down this link also. So you can come here again, make sure that what is your host operating system. In my case, it is Windows. So I'll click on here and it will hopefully start downloading, right? I will just refresh it. Sorry for that. Okay, great. So it has just started downloading. You can also download it just like clicking here, right? It is pretty much less in size, but for this lab purpose, making it clear, I will be using VMware, right? So to follow along, you can download VMware, but feel free to use VirtualBox anytime. You will be able to use it no matter what. After you completely watch this video, you will be comfortable with any of the virtualization software, right? So these are the two virtualization software. You have to download one of them. I will be following VMware, right? The second is downloading the Ubuntu operating system, right? Now, how are you going to download the Ubuntu operating system? And it is for the time being, just keep in mind, it is like just downloading the Windows ISO file that you just download for the USB plugin, right? So here also we'll be downloading the Ubuntu ISO file, right? So you can just type download Ubuntu, download Ubuntu. Second link you can go. So you have here Ubuntu for desktop that we will be doing. Also, there are certain flavors, different flavors, like Ubuntu server, Ubuntu cloud, and pretty much more, right? So we'll be dealing in this again. Just a quick refresher. So what we will be working on is Linux, right? And out of which the distribution that we will be dealing on is Debian, right? Again, remember that I talked about the templates, right? Different templates like Debian, CentOS, Arch Linux, again, so on and so forth. And Debian based operating system. There are pretty much a lot of Debian based operating system like Kali Linux and other operating systems, and out of which one is Ubuntu. So we'll be working on this, right? Just to clarify. So I'll drop down this link also. You can come here, just click on Ubuntu desktop, and hopefully it will start downloading, right? Okay, so you have to click it here. I'll drop down this link. Okay. So currently the version is 22.0.2, 04.2. It is a LTS version, which is stable version. Make sure whenever you are trying something new, whenever you are new to any concept and you are getting into hands-on, make sure you download the stable version, right? Because you don't want to deal with the troubleshooting part, right? So by clicking here, the download will start. I guess my side, from my side, the internet speed is slow or something, but download usually the download starts quickly. Okay, so it started. So it is a 4.6 GB of file, right? I'll just pause it out because I have already downloaded to demonstrate it, right? So we'll come back to the desktop so we can gather these things and start on. Okay, so what we have right now is after you download this, you will have a Ubuntu ISO file, which is nothing. Just keep in mind you have the operating system in this file, right? How are you going to use it? How are you going to install it? Just wait for a couple of minutes, you'll get to know it. Right? Then this is the virtual machine. It will look like this, right? Once you install it, right? And the setup will look like something this, right? Mine could be of older version, but it does the work, right? So what you have to do is just go on to it, double click it, right? And I guess it will ask you the administrative permissions. Just give it to them. Okay, it is taking some time because pretty much software running on my machine. I won't be able to show you the complete till the last installation, but I will tell you what, because it is pretty easy and there is no point of showing it. Just next again. So you have just give the permission to it and it will start like this. So I won't be able to show you complete the last till last the installation process. Why? Because I already have this installed, right? And in order to set up the lab and do some use cases, right? So I had to install the lab, but yes, the operating system installation process I will be showing it to you properly, and this is pretty much simple, right? It just unpacks it. It just does all the things on its own. Next. Don't uh, hover around with different options on it. Keep it default for time being, right? So waiting again. So what agenda we are here having is, so I guess it has started installing. So what agenda we are having is, we will be learning how to install, how to install, look and feel, right? And in between this, what VMware, how to use it, right? And okay, so why does it saying like this? Because I have already installed it, right? So you can, what you can do is just click on it, next, and it will ask you to restart your system, right? Just give it a restart, and you will land upon this setting, right? So you will just go on to this. Before that, so we're talking about how we are going to install the operating system, VMware, look and feel of the Ubuntu, CLI basic commands, getting getting used to it, right? Uh, Getting look and feel of CLI, how to use it, what basic terminologies are, right? So this is the basic agenda, right? And if required, and if you guys ask, then furthermore on it, advanced CLI commands and advanced stuff will be given to you, right? So moving on, when you will double click on this, you don't have to do anything. Just keep it on wherever directory it is, the Ubuntu desktop file, right? Ubuntu operating system file, and you will have a shortcut here. You just double click on it, right? And you will see a page like this, not like this, something like this, close to this, right? And the color scheme can be different. So what are these, right? These are the virtual machines that I have already on my system, right? What is this green sign shows me? It is showing that this virtual machine is running. When I say virtual machine, it is operating system in general, right? It can be more, but it is something that is running, and it is something that is using the computing power, the RAM, the CPU, the disk usage, right, from my system. When we will install, or when we will go through the Ubuntu process, it will be clear in your head that what am I talking about right now. So just ignore this bit for some time. When you will start, you will either have this, right? If you don't have it, you will have these 5 options, right? This one is for the advanced part, that is virtual network editor. You take care of the networking part, and it is out of scope of the video, and I will make some video, and I will have to explain it, because in that preferences, don't deal with it for now. These are grayed out, right? It will start on once you start any virtual machine, right? So this one is the main one. So you can start a new virtual machine from here, or you can open one. So there is a fundamental difference, is that one is I'm sorry, I guess the color choice is wrong. Okay, so one is the ISO file, .iso file, and one is the .ova file, right? These are the two major files, extensions, which are used in virtualization, not in VMware, any virtualization software, be it VirtualBox. For ISO, you make the virtual machine from scratch, right? From scratch. Like, there are no predefined computing power usage configurations, like it will use 4 GB of RAM or this much of hard disk. No, you can customize it from the scratch, right? This is smaller in size. Obviously, it is like a setup, right? And you unzip it or something. And this is a full-fledged virtual machine. For example, if we take the example of Ubuntu, right? If I have the OVA file of Ubuntu, which I myself have created, and I have made some configurations in terms of networking part. It is not in scope of this video, just to make you understand, because you don't have to run here and there when you listen to new terms, right? So if I have made the configuration for in the networking part and the computational power part, that this much of the RAM will be used, these many network adapter has to be there, right? This is a package. It is like a container, right? It is like a container, just like you see in Docker, right? Consider it like this in a layman term, right? So for this, you can come directly here. You can open the virtual machine, right? But you won't find anything right now because you don't have the OV file, right? So what we'll do is we'll make the virtual machine from scratch, that is new virtual machine. Something like this will appear on your screen. There are two options. One is typical, one is custom advanced. Go for typical, which is recommended, right? So you can, it will ask you that whatever you want to install, right? Do you want to give the installation file, that is the ISO file, right now or later, right? If you want to give it right now, you can click here and give the path to it, right? You can give the path to it. And if you want to give it later on, you can just finish off the configuration, then add the ISO file path. So what I do, what the recommended steps are, is you add the operating system later on, right? So you will just, but anyways, you can add it here only if you want to, right? So you'll just press next, and then it asks you select the guest operating system. So if you read it correctly, it is saying which operating system will be installed on this virtual machine. So what we are creating is a virtual machine. So what are we installing? Microsoft Windows? No, we are installing Linux, right? So it gives you a drop down menu about what kind of Linux it is. If you are able to find it here, good enough, right? That we can find, obviously Ubuntu 64 bits. But if you cannot find it, no problem, right? If it is giving you the other option, just put the latest one, right? It does not affect the your virtual machine directly in any way. Again, it does not affect your virtual machine directly in any way, right? So since we have the option, we move forward. So now here it will ask you the machine name. The machine name will populate accordingly, but I have already installed 1 and 2 Ubuntu operating system, so it says 3 in the bracket, right? So you can give any name to the machine, right? So you can say Ubuntu lab, right? And the location where you want to install it. Initially, I would say keep it default. Once you are comfortable with it, you can change it like in new machines, because right now if you give whatever the location, it will not be changed. But when you are doing the initial part, or when you are just starting out with the this hypervisor or virtualization software, just keep it default. It does not matter. Yes, so this is quite important. So it is asking you. So one thing is there, which is very important, is there are three things: RAM, CPU, disk space, and network adapters, right? And pretty much other things like mouse and all of that. You can add it, but it also, since it has already developed so much, right, it just populate it on its own. But if you are adding it externally or an extra screen you want, you can add it later on. I will show you that as well. So what I want to throw light on is, once you are done with this whole configuration, no matter what RAM you give, for example, you give 4 GB, no matter how much CPU you give, for example, you give 2 cores, right, and in disk you give 30 GB. This, after you are done, you have used the virtual machine 1 or 2 days, now you feel I want to change the RAM. You can change, increase it or decrease it, right? You can change the CPU, increase it or decrease it, but you cannot change this. You cannot change the disk size, because in this disk size, the host operating system will be installed, right? Yes, there is a option that you can add another disk that I will show you, right? But that is a different part. So whenever you are deciding how much you want to allocate the space, just do some calculations. And for Ubuntu, 35 or 40 will be pretty much enough. So yes, we are pretty much done now. This is our configuration, right? I will just first finish it off, then we can customize it, right? Once we are done, it shows up here, something like this. It automatically gives that 4 GB of virtual machine, 4 GB of RAM is required. From where did it populated? When we the dialog box that we selected from Linux and Ubuntu 64-bit, right? Processor and hard disk we selected. Sorry. So you have two options: power on the virtual machine. Powering on the virtual machine right now will have no point because we have not added the ISO file. So don't do it. Edit the virtual machine. Yes. So we can look into it. As said, we can change the RAM. We can decrease it to 2 GB, or you can put any random, any value you want the RAM to be 5120, right? So it will be changed. For processors, you can choose like number of processors and number of cores per processor. So it will be into 1 into 2 or 2 into 2 into 4, right? So it depends on how much of the processor and RAM is available in your operating system, right? To learn or practice this Ubuntu, if you are not running any other applications in the background, right, 8 GB of total RAM in your system is enough. You can give Ubuntu 4 GB of RAM when you are installing it. When you are done installing it, you can decrease it down to the 3.5, right? So we'll just keep it whatever you can keep it according to you. So hard disk, it shows the path, right? Current size, how much of it is free, and maximum size. So what in the backend it does, right? When you allocate some memory, right, it will not go. For example, this is your total memory, right? And it is 1 TB, or I should say 100 GB for the ease of explaining, right? And you are currently using 20 GB. 80 GB is free, and you allocate 35 GB. So it will not go to your hard disk and block this 35. No. What it will do is, it will create a file in its own, here this path, where it is defined that the maximum disk size is 35 GB, right? So the system knows that this virtual machine, which system? The host system, my Windows machine, knows that this virtual machine has been allocated 35 GB of hard disk, right? So it can use it. So it will not block all the memory at once. It will be a simultaneous process, right? As you use it, uh, as you keep on using, the size of the virtual machine will increase, right? And with the size of virtual machine increasing, the size of the size the space left in your disk will be decreased, right? Simple terms. So it will not block it completely. It is a currently it will be taking 4.4 MB of size in your disk. Why I'm putting so much of time on this? Because these are the some concepts that you will learn if you work on it for 6 months, right? So it's better to look into it for 10 minutes, right? 10 then 6 minutes. Again, the system free is this and maximum size is this. Cool. This is the networking part. It is out of scope of the video, but keep it nat, just nat, right? Because I'll just give you one. So this is nat. This is out of scope of the video, right? So I'll just give you one brief overview at what it is, right? So here is internet, right? Your laptop is connected to internet or your router, right? I should say, right? By Wi-Fi. It will have an IP address, right? Because with IP address only you can communicate to internet. By the way, the for the networking part, there will be videos coming, right? But right now, for the sake of understanding, I'm just giving a brief overview, right? So your laptop will have an IP address to communicate to the outer world. So also in your Ubuntu machine, if you want to go for google.com, right, you will have to have the access of the internet. But since your Ubuntu machine is sitting over the Windows machine and it will go through Windows machine, right? So there are two options to access the internet here. One is NAT, one is bridged. In NAT, our Ubuntu machine will get an IP address of different subnet, right? For those who understand subnet, it is okay. For those who do not understand, it is also okay, right? Just remember, for to access the internet, there are two options. One is NAT, one is bridged. For NAT, NAT is actually network address translation, right? So when you go onto the internet, your private IP gets converted into the public IP, right? And bridge is Ubuntu operating system will be using your host IP address, right? Not getting too much into it because it is not much of scope of it because we are looking into learning operating system. So these are some other hardware options like display, printer, sound card, USB network. So if I delete this, whatever I will, if I play a video on in my Linux machine, right, that I have just made, I will not be able to hear any sound or whatever it is concerned about, right? So similarly, you can add other also, like I talked about. You can add another hard disk as well, right? What type of hard disk you want to add? This create a new virtual hard disk or use an existing virtual disk, right? Simple give the hard disk and it will be created and it will reflect in your operating system inside, right? And that is it pretty much, I guess, right? I'll just drop down the RAM to 4096. So where we are going to put the ISO file is this. You click on the use ISO image, browse, go on to the file section, click on it, just open it, click OK, you are done. So we'll power on the virtual machine. I'll walk you through the steps, right? And after which it will take around 10 minutes of installation, right? And I will be using this virtual machine to show you the commands and all because I've already installed it. But the installation part I will show you here, right? So we'll just power on the virtual machine. It looks like this, right? Don't be worried about. For example, right now I'm moving my cursor right here. If I click anything, if I want to move it and I'm pressing the down arrow, it is not moving. I have to just click it once. It is showing like you get the screen and get into the screen. Now I'm going into down arrow above or this or that. So try or install Ubuntu, just do it, right? Now when I move my mouse or my cursor, right, I cannot get out of it. How to get out of it? Just press Control and Alt together and you will get it, right? You can move here, you can select this, you can minimize this, right? So it will boot up, right? And I'll come back once it is booted up, right? Okay, so it has booted up already. No worries. Okay. So you get two options. One is try Ubuntu, which does not require some installations, right? You can just click on it. You can go through it, what it is, right? But click on install Ubuntu, so you can get the look and feel of it, right? The keyboard layout and just these are the normal things that you do in your Windows operating system. Also, just continue with it. Okay. So what apps would you like to install to start with? One is normal installation, and the other is minimal. So go for the normal installation to explore the whole GUI because it will give you pretty much a lot of applications, right, which are necessary instead of going again installing it manually. Download updates while installing Ubuntu. I will uncheck this. You can check this because for me it will take time. So if you have noticed, it has adjusted its size accordingly, right? So it picked up the whole VM environment. Okay. So it is asking us to erase disk and install Ubuntu and giving us a warning that it will delete all of our system files and all of that or something else. So you have already selected the disk, right? And it does not have anything, right? So go for it, erase disk and install Ubuntu. Once you click on install Ubuntu, it will start installing. It will take around 5 to 10 minutes of time. Let it do what it wants to do, right? And just give it the username, right? It will ask you, then just like in Windows, what is the name? You put your name. What is your full name? You put your full name. What is your password? You give it a password. Done, right? When you are done doing this, come back. We'll move to the last step. So hello, welcome back, Cyberheads. So now our Ubuntu operating system is set, and we have already set the username and the password. I suppose now we can get into it, right? So let's get into it. I'll put my password, right? So this is the screen that pops up the first time when you install the operating system, right? And it is not pretty much like the Windows default operating system GUI, but it does have all the flexibility in terms of doing anything from the GUI perspective. But if we talk about 5 years back, this was not the case. 5 years back, the GUI capability was very limited, right? And there were quite a lot of features that were not available, which were very basic in nature. But fortunately, the community has evolved very rapidly, and the operating system has improved drastically, right? And the GUI has become very user friendly. Now you can use it as your own prime host operating system, since it has almost all of the connectivity, stability, security perspective, and ease of use is also uh, been a concern in the past, but now it has been solved. almost most of it, right? So we'll just have a quick look of the GUI, right? Not all the options we can explore in this video, but how does it look like, and how is it different, and what are the things that are same to Windows, we can look into it. So if you look at the top right corner, we do have the volume slider button, and yeah, so we have the power saver, balance mode, all of those. If you're using a laptop, you can do the power saving settings into it. The connectivity option is there, locking the your screen, powering on, off, shutdown is there. You can access the settings right from here. The date and time is displayed here, right? And these are a couple of the applications that come along with it. These are the favorite applications. So when you first boot the operating system, these applications will be there, and the default web browser which is provided to you is the Mozilla Firefox, right? And what you can do is you can do just one thing. Okay, so now, so you can, when you open it up, I wanted to show you one thing. So it shows you here that it is opening up, and once it is opened up, there's a green dot here, right? Till the time it is open, it will be there. So you get to know that which all apps are open currently, right? Similarly, here a document is running in the background, right? So you have the dot here, and this is the, what you call, divider or what. So all of these apps, above these apps, are the favorite apps. So now you can add any of the app into the favorite section, and it will pop out here, pop in here. Like if I put this, sorry, this one into favorite, so it just popped out, just shifted to above, right? So I'm moving it to favorites. Default web browser is Mozilla Firefox. It works completely fine. Very consumes lesser amount of computing power, right? Because of the architecture of the operating system. And then we have this button here. From here, you can access all the applications that are in your operating system. Also, you have the search bar. You can search for it. For example, you can search for Office. Obviously, you will not get Office 365 because it is of Microsoft, but you do have LibreOffice. In it, you can do most of the fundamental tasks, right? Basic tasks you can do it. Also, you can use Google Sheets, right? Because that is an online uh, Word formatting tool, right? So you get a system monitor application, just like a task manager in Windows, right? You can see in GUI form how much of the CPU has been used, how many cores are there, how much RAM is being used and is free. Similarly, goes for the disk as well, right? So this option is also there, so you can explore by yourself. There are a couple of applications that are pre-installed, and for the other applications to be installed, you have Ubuntu store, just like a Windows store. Like you have Ubuntu store. Once you click on it, you just sign in, I guess, sign in with your normal user ID. You can do it with the Gmail username, and you can just, it's like a marketplace of application, though it is not uh, it does not have a lot of apps, right? So there are other ways in which you download it directly from the web, or you download it from the CLI, which we will see, right? For software updates, you can go right here, or you can do it from the command line, right? So these two things were there. Okay, so before moving on, so this is the file explorer, in terms of, if we call in terms of the Windows, right? Here all the files you can see in the GUI form, and just like any other file system, you do have the default directories, which is document, downloads, music, pictures, right? And for recycle bin, it is trash, right? And these are some of the files which maintain certain commands which take care of certain processes, right? So currently we are in the home directory in Ubuntu. When we say directory, we mean a folder, right? So document is a directory here, right? And it can be also called as folder, so it does not make any difference, right? And we can see also so I just clicked upon the show hidden files, so in the home directory, these are the hidden files, right, which are not generally shown into the file system, right? And so one thing that I want you guys to understand is, unlike Windows, for example, in Windows we have couple of system files, right? What are system files? System files are something that that deals on the system level, right? For example, in Windows we have system, we have program files, right? We have user directory. So these are the directories, right? In the mostly we install our operating system in C drive, so you can find it in your C drive in your Windows operating system, right? And so in Linux also it is the same, right? But the name of the directories are different, their operations are different, right? So, and it is pretty important concept, right? So there are 2 3 things that we have gone through the course. One was the mind map, right, which consisted of all the fundamentals of Linux. Then we moved on to the virtualization part, right, which we covered in theory and practical also, which is also necessary, right? And then we have the file system. If we talk about the Linux, you should know it, right? So I have made a, just like a mind map, I have made a dedicated PDF file, so you can have it handy. And it is not exhaustive in nature, right, but it does give you an idea of how things look like, of like if there is a directory that pops up like etc, right? So you know that it deals with the configuration files, right? So this is the kind of thing, and I'll drop down the PDF file in the LinkedIn page or wherever possible, right? And we'll just go through it very quickly, and just I'll just mention the important directories, although most of all the directories are important, right, in it. But those directories are presented at the root level, right? We will go on to the terminal part, that is when we will run commands. But before that, I'll just tell you that there is a root directory, and in Linux the file system is hierarchical. Hierarchical means in a fashion of top to bottom or bottom to top, right? Majorly top to bottom. So there is root directory, then we have certain directories, right? So in certain directory we have other directories, then followed by other directories, right? But they all converge into the root directories, right? So in root directory, when I say directory, it means folder, simple terms, right? In root directory there are certain 15 16 approximately uh, other directories that deal with the specific commands or files, right? So we'll just go through it. Before that, I will show you where does it stands. Right now I'm opening terminal, but we will go through it again, just for the sake of showing I'm sorry. So right now I'm opening the terminal, right? So just for the sake of showing, I'm sorry. So right now I'm opening the command line, and just for the sake of showing showing showing, okay. So right now I'm opening the command line, right? But just for the sake of showing, fuck. Okay. So right now I'm opening the command line, but just for the sake of showing you like where the directories actually are, right? Don't worry about what command I'm running, like, because we will go through it from the very beginning. So this is the file that I have created to make it easy to understand, right? To make it easy to understand for us, and just zoom in so you can see it easily. Okay, cool. So I'll just make you go through the terminal, right? I'm just showing you the root directory, like how many uh, directories are there, what all commands I have run here. I'll go through it, don't worry about it, right? So these are the commands under the root directory. We are currently in the root directory, that is this directory, and these are a couple of the directories that we will be talking about, right? So very quickly we'll go through it, right? And for the bin directory and sbin directory, these are the directories that take care of the user binaries and system binary files, right? And similarly, then we have etc directory. You can find it here as well, right? Like bin directory, you can find it here. And again, there is a temp directory, media directory, etc. Here you have, etc. Here you have, right? So we'll show you when we'll get it inside it what kind of configuration files does it hold, right? And similarly, we have dev, which takes care in the device files, proc that takes care process informations, variable, temp, variable files, temporary files, user programs, home directories, bootloader files. Bootloaders, if you remember, that we talked about when we were talking about the kernel. And then there is lib, which takes care with the system libraries, opt that takes care with the add-ons in the application, right? And service data, right? So brief 2-3 ordered list points, bullet points of these directories we have here, right? So in order to understand and what they actually do, right? Very quickly we'll go through it. The document will be available to you, so that's not a problem, right? So root directory sits at the top, right? And it has all the privileges. By meaning all the privileges, it means that it can execute anything, it can delete any file, it can install anything on the system, just that, right? We'll talk about the permissions of the files also in the command line when we will move on to the command line. And similarly, then we have bin and sbin, right? There are certain commands that they hold. So we'll learn these commands: ps, ls, ping, grep, cp. What are these? What they do, right? So whenever these commands are executed, they are taken care by the bin directory, right? Similarly, there is sbin directory, which is mainly used by system administrator and system maintenance purpose, right? Because the commands like IP tables, which shows you the routing table, right? And then we have reboot command. Fdisk means how much of the disk is free. These are the commands that run on the CLI, right? If config and so on. So it is used for the system maintenance. Similarly, we have here the etc file, which deals with the configuration files, and some of the example of the configuration files are like this, and the configuration extension is this dot conf, right? You can see it here. And then we have dev, which is the device files. These include terminal devices, which means USBs, right? So if you plug in any USB, the process and everything will be dealt by the dev file directory, right? So dev file directory, here it is. So you can see here it is present, right? So again, moving on, we have the proc, which takes care of the process information, right? Any process that is running behind, because every time when you boot up operating system, process starts running behind. Every time you launch an application, the relevant process runs behind, right, to make it up and running. So everything is dealt by the proc directory. And then we have variable files, var directory, that take care of the system log files, packages, database files, right? And then we have temporary files. Temporary files are those files, files are contained in the temporary directory, right? Like this, it is present here. So these are the files when you boot up the system for the first time, right? You boot up the system for the first time and you work on it, then you run a couple of applications, you do your work, right? So some of the data gets stored in the temporary file, right? But when you shut down it or restart it, this data gets deleted, right? So it is pretty self-explanatory that it is temporary files, it gets deleted. Similarly, we have user programs, which deals with the users that we created. So now, right now, I have the user CyberTab here. I am logged in as CyberTab. So we can create multiple users here, like John, Alex, right? So like this, we can create it. And couple of more things it does. And for example, we'll run this command user add. when we'll go into the CLI. So it is taken care by the user directory. Home directory we have, so anything related to personal files, if you download something, or if you have some videos and pictures that you download, so it will, by default, you can change it obviously, but by default it will go into the home and your username directory, right? Bootloader, it takes care of loading the kernel into the memory, right? And we have already talked about the bootloader takes care of loading kernel into the memory, right? So those files are contained here. And then we have library files, system libraries, right? So the extensions that it contains is .lib, right? And contains library files that support the binary located under bin and isbin, right? Then we have optional add-on applications, mount directory. Whenever you mount any of the temporary mount directory where system admin can mount file systems, right? It is mainly for these maintenance purposes or troubleshooting purposes if there are any. Then media directory, it also takes care with the removable media devices, which is CD-ROM, media, floppy drives, pen drives, we can say. Right? Then we have service data, which takes care of the server operations, right? So these are a couple of the directories. I'm not saying that you should learn it, but you should be aware of it, right? What are these? Why? How the Linux file structure is? The documents looks like this. So till now, you will be getting two documents. One is the mind map, which contains everything about the Linux. So if you have it handy, 90% of the basic fundamental Linux is there. And then you have the file structure document, this one. This you will also get in the PDF form. So you can also refer or anything when it comes for the file system, right? Just know how does it work, right? So now we will be moving on to the exciting part, obviously. The command line, I'll just close it out because again I will open it up so you will have a clear idea. So we can open up the command line. First of all, it is not known as command prompt because in Windows we are in the habit of seeing it as command prompt. Here it is known as terminal, right? There are a couple of terminologies which are used in terminal, right? Uh, that we will be talking here also, and it are available in the mind map also, right? So it is quite exhaustive in terms of the information that you should barely know, like at least you should know this, right? It has it, right? So it is called terminal, not the command line. Then you can open it, like you can come here, you can type terminal, enter, and it will pop up, or you can just right click on the screen and open terminal, right? As soon as you open the terminal, you have the black screen in front of you. I will just increase the font so you can see it clearly again. Okay, great. So what we see right now here is we are having this. This is my username. This is the standard format. Username at the machine name. So this is the name of my machine currently, CyberTab virtual machine, right? When you must have installed the operating system, you must have given you must have given a name to your machine, right? For me, it is CyberTab virtual machine, and my username is CyberTab. So I am logged in as CyberTab. Till here, just know this, right? And when you see this symbol, right? I will type it in the command line so you can see this symbol. It is here, right? So it is a symbol of home directory, right? It is a symbol of home directory, which means that you are in the home directory. Currently, we are in the desktop directory. Now, what does it mean actually we are in the desktop directory, right? So it means like this is the root folder. I'll just put it in the box so to avoid confusion. Then there are multiple directories under it. One directory is home directory, and under home directory there are multiple directories, and under that one is desktop, one is downloads, one will be documents, one will be videos, pictures, right? And some hidden files, right? So you are currently somewhere here. So if you type a command which gives the instruction to the command line that show me whatever the files are present inside the desktop, it will show you, right? Simple, pretty simple, right? So now, if you don't know, right, we'll talk about some of the commands now. You don't know where are you right now, right? You want to know which directory you are in. So we have a command pwd, which means print working directory. Once you enter it, it shows you, which I just talked about. It shows you that you are under the home, that you are under the home directory under the username CyberTab, because obviously if I'm logged in by any other user like John, then it would have John here, right? Then it is in desktop, right? You are in desktop right now. So one very interesting thing. Now if I go here, right, in the GUI form, and I click here, I'm in the home directory, right? I'm not in the desktop folder. So if you see it like this, you are currently here, but you are not able to see the file present in here. So for that you have to give a command, right? Before uh, moving on to that command, I just wanted to show you, like, you are currently in home directory here. So if you right click here and go for open in terminal, so if you look closely, okay, so unlike this command line, it just have the home directory option, which means you are present here. So just like any just like this, you can go into any folders or directories and just open it in the terminal, right, for the convenience, right? So this is the symbol of the home directory I just talked about. So we'll just go back to this. So in the desktop directory, you have the Linux file system PDF, this which I just showed you, but now you want to see it in the command line, right? The terminal. So what command you should type, right? So one command is ls, which means list all the files which are present in the directory, current directory, which means that list all the files which are present in the current directory. And what is my current directory? That is the desktop directory. So once I enter it, it shows you that there is a file name as Linux file system pdf.pdf, right? Simple command ls, right? Then we have a command. Let's say you want to know which user as which user you are logged in right now. So you can type who am I as CyberTab, right? These are the simple basic commands, right? So now one very important command is cd, right? Just to show you cd, it means change directory, which simply means change the folder. For example, you want to get into from desktop folder to document folder, right? So you want to change the directory. There are 2-3 things you can do. One is, that, for example, very quickly, that uh, in the home directory, we're not talking about the root directory and all of those branches, right? Currently we're talking about the home directory. So you have couple of directories, and under which one is desktop directory, and under which you are sitting right now, and you want to go here, right? So you cannot go here like this. You will go here like this. Going here like this is called a relative path, right? And if you want to go directly from desktop directory to documents directory, then you have to give the absolute path, right? You'll get to know the what relative and absolute path means, right? So it basically means when you are currently in a directory, and in that directory only, if you want to move in laterally, you can give the relative path, because you don't need to define the home directory. But for reaching somewhere which is out of those directories that you are currently in, then you have to give the absolute path. For example, want to go to home, you made some folder like Linux course, then you have some another directory videos under it, then you want to open a file which is mp4, so cybertab.mp4. So you have to give this much of command and type here cd change directory to this, then you will be here, right? Pretty simple. So we will perform this. First of all, we'll list. Okay, so we know that there is a file name as Linux file system. Now we want to change directory. I want to go up, right? And in order to go up, we have to give a command change directory dot dot, right? Dot dot 2 times. It moves you up in the hierarchy, right? Moving up in the hierarchy means this is desktop, this is home, this is root. So once you type cd dot dot, you move here, then you move here, right? Then you're in the root directory. Once you press enter, you can see it has changed from desktop to home, right? If you press ls, you will get all the directories that are present in here in the home directory. You can double check it. This is the home directory. If you just hide the hidden files, these are the directories that are present, right? Similarly, if you want to go into documents, what you will do, you will just go cd space, press documents. Now if you press tab, right, if you have spelled it right, it will autofill. Now if you have spelled it like this, do, and if you press tab, right, then you have two options. It will give you that I have two options which matches with your string, right? Which one do you want to choose? I'm like docu. Then I press tab, it autofills automatically. Press enter, and then I list the file, right? So this is a test file which I made. And generally there is no file when you have the operating system out of the box, right? So the concept of changing file is like this: cd change directory, right? So currently where are we? We can know print working directory. We are in the home directory, right? So then we have a command which is ls dash a. Now what is dash and a? So every command has a argument. It has multiple arguments you can give it to. And how do you give arguments to it? That is dash the argument type. Like in this case a, you have r also, you have al also, right? We'll see this. So right now we'll type ls dash a, and this is a command for showing the hidden files in the directory. So it will show the hidden files in the home directory, because currently we are in the home directory, right? So this is how the hidden files come up. So you know that these are the normal directories that we just talked about, right? But these .sh, .local, .cache, config, this bash history, these are the hidden files. So you can give this command and you can look into what are the hidden files or what are the files that are not shown, right? Now the whole terminal is pretty messy. If you want to clean it, you can just give a command clear and press enter. Everything will be cleared. Also, if you want to work simultaneously on two terminals, you can just press this now, and just like Google Chrome, you have multiple tabs, any browser, right? And you can work on that as well separately, right? So now we are in the home directory. So one more command is there which shows you the permissions as well. Now what are the permissions? We'll see. We'll do ls list all the files in the home directory dash al. It will show you the hidden files as well as the permissions associated to every file in the directory, right? So if we look into this one, just this desktop directory, first of all, it is under the name of username CyberTab, date time of creation, and the name of directory. By this, what do we mean, right? So by D, it means it is a directory. And here it is a dash, it means it is a file. Simple, right? So, and it is in the format of read. You can see write and execute. Then it is read, write, and execute. Then it is again read, write, and execute. First three read and write execute here directory, right? Like this. First three read, write, and execute denotes for users. Next one denotes for groups, and next one denotes for others. So for any user, if I have defined and CyberTab is a user, of course, right? I have defined it can read. Obviously, this section is relevant to CyberTab, right? Because it is the section of user, so it can read the desktop directory, it can write into it, and it can execute any operation which requires the admin privileges or the root privileges, we can say. So it can delete it also, right? But in the case of, I will show you if I see the example like this, right? So in this case, what it shows you, first of all, it is not a directory. Second, it has a, for users, it has a permission of read, write, but not execute. For groups, it has permission of read only, not write, not execute. Then for others, it also has the permission of read only, not write and execute, right? So we can change the permissions of the files as well, that we will see in the upcoming commands, right? So this is the way you can find out which files are associated with which permissions. ls-al, right? Now, if we clear this out and if we list the files and if we go into cd downloads, so I press tab and I'm in downloads right now, you can see it here, and again I list it. So if there is nothing in there and if I give the list command, so it will just again come up with the same thing, same username and password, right? Now if I want to go into the home directory, right, then I just type it like this and come into the home directory list. Then we have username CyberTab, then I go into CyberTab and enter it, then I come into the home directory, right? One way of going into the home directory from downloads is this, right? One is, and by the way, if you press the up arrow, you can find the recent commands that you have given, right? So for the convenience, I will use, one way is to go into the home directory till here from any of the directories in the lateral directories is this, right? And the other one is, like I was in downloads, right? Okay, so other one is obviously I am just one step below the home directory, so I can just go cd dash dash and back in the home directory, right? One other way is this, I go into the downloads, cd, and this symbol, it is present in your laptop just below the escape key, right? This, wherever you are in the terminal, if you are inside public under multiple directories, you can just type it out and you will come back to the home directory, right? Now how you can make directories, right? Obviously you want to make directories, here you can come up, just create new folder and give it a name and one folder will be created. But from terminal, how you can make it, the command is mk make dir directory, give it a name. Make sure whenever you want to create something into somewhere, you are in that directory. So if I want to create a directory in home directory, so currently I'm there, so I will give it a name CyberTab, and also the directories are case sensitive. If I give it like CyberTab C capital, or if I give it like CyberTab with C small case, it is different, right? So if I give C capital and enter, there will be a directory named as CyberTab. Here it is. Now if I go into CyberTab and list it to check if there is anything, there is nothing obviously, right? There is nothing in that. Now if there is nothing, we would want to create a file, obviously. So there are a couple of ways to create files, right? Couple of ways and couple of commands to create files. One is cat command, right? One is touch command. One is nano editor, and there are others that you can download, right? So you just clear it out. So currently we are in the CyberTab directory. What we will do is cat, this is the command for concatenate, and just give it like this and give it a file name. File name will be test1, .txt, giving the extension to it, pressing enter. So nothing happened. So it is like it has created the file and it has given you the editor. So now you can type, hello, my name is CyberTab, please subscribe, right? And just press Control C and you're done. So now if you go ls, there is a file. Now you want to see the content of the file, like what is inside the file. What you do, just go cat space tx, sorry, test, it is test1xt, enter. So this is the content of the file. What was different? Just this was different. So if you put this and put the name of any file that you want to create, it will create the file, give you the editor, you type it in, and just file is created, right? And then we have a command for obviously to remove the directory. So right now I'm moving directly to home directory, and then we can list, we have CyberTab. Just to demonstrate, I will create another directory by mkdir test delete, enter, ls. So there is a directory created, right? So now how can you delete it? Some just simple command rmdir space whichever file you want to, whichever directory you want to delete, just enter. Now list, it is deleted, clearing the console, right? So now we know how to make directory, delete it, make a file, how to view it, how to list file in directories, right? So far we have covered these things, right? And one more thing we can just figure out, moving into the CyberTab directory first, we have a file like this. So now what we can do is move this file by command mv, giving the name file test1.txt. So this is the command to tell them what to do, is to move what, move this file, where, move it to /home /cybertab /documents, right? So this is called giving the absolute path. I have given the absolute path, right from the top to the directory I want to place it in, right? If I list it, nothing is there. If I go back, list it again, then we have directories in the home directory. Where did we move it? That is documents. Go into the documents. Now you're in the documents directory, list it, and here you have the file, right? So this is how you move a file. And one more thing is there, one command is there. I'll just give you another command to make a file again. So in documents folder only, documents directory only, how you can make another command, another file is directly just typing touch and give the file name anything, just like test2.txt and enter, right? Ls, you have the file test2. Now how you want to edit it in a more interactive way? For that you have nano, which file you want to edit, test2.txt, enter it. You are inside the editor, right? Don't just freak out. Just type hello, my name is CyberTab, please to subscribe the channel. Okay, so the channel string is in the 2 lines because I have a command that I have to show you. That is why I have put the word in 2 lines, right? So now how to save this, right? First, go to every command or every action it is showing below comes with, like it is showing G. So control plus G, control plus X, control plus R, control plus \U to paste, to justify, and all of that, right? You can explore. So currently we'll do exit. It is asking save modified buffer. Just press yes. And file name to write, you can edit the name, change the name, or you can just press enter, right? So now you have a file test2.txt. You can view the file just like by simple cat test2.txt, and it is this. So now we have 2-3 ways how to create a file. One is cat, one is touch, one is nano. So one more command I wanted to show you is that if you list the files in the directory, which is documents, now we have created a file that is test2.txt, right? So it has around 5 or 4 lines, right? Now if there is a file having 10,000s of lines and you want to just filter out some of these strings on any parameter, right? Or be it strings, be it some particular number of words, be it on which line some words are. Show me that, for example, the subscribe word, if there are 1,000 lines, on how many lines the subscribe word is coming, right? So I'll just show you one example for the test2.txt. First, look into the file. What does it have inside? That is, it has 5 lines, right? So the word channel is repeating, but what we observe is it is different as to the first letter C in the fourth line is small case, and in the fifth line is large case, right? So the command is grep, right? So by the command grep and giving any argument, so now where you can see the argument, you can go into like grep dash dash help, and here it is. So these are some of the the arguments that you can give. For example, you can give dash I, so it will ignore all the cases of the distinction in the patterns and do not ignore any case distinction defaults, right? So for example, if you give dash X, it matches only the whole lines. So in real life, you don't use all of them, right? But some of them you use them. For example, we go for test2 again, not txt, right? So one command I'll show you, grep dash C. So this parameter will show you that for the word channel in the file test2.txt, grep the word channel from the file test2.txt, right? How many times does it appear? If you enter, it gives 1. Why? Because we do have it in 2 lines, but the other one is having the uppercase, right? So now if we change it, nano test2.txt, and just go down there and put another word, channel is awesome, right? Control plus X, yes, enter. Right now if we cat it, test2.txt, right? So it is this. Now if I run again the same command of grep by up arrow, now it will say 2, right? So it makes things pretty convenient when it comes to filtering out or searching it into any particular files, be it any extension, be it number of lines, be it any regular expression you want to learn, right? So you can explore as much as you want, right? It's just a how things are working in the command line, or what are the most sought after commands, right? So moving on from these commands, first you know the clear command, obviously, right? Moving on into the host, into the home folder, right? So I just went it by changing directory to this, right? So one command is history command. So what does it do? It shows you all the commands that you have entered so far. So now in the case, if I create another terminal instance in the same terminal like this, and if I close this, and if I type history here, right, it will show me. But if I close the whole CLI, it will not pop up, right? So if I type history, you will find the whole commands if, in case you need to go back into any specific command, right? Pretty much a lot of commands that we have already run. So the commands you will be able to find in the mind map. Don't worry to like you have to remember them and all, but just see how does it work. And one command is host name, right? If you enter it, it will show you the name of the machine, which is CyberTab virtual machine. which is the name that you entered when you started the or installed the operating system, right? Similarly, we have one other command, that is host ID, right? It is a primary ID, or it does not change, like it is mapped with the host name. This, it is mapped with the host name, right? And date, obviously you can find date. You can just enter date. It will show you day, month, time, time zone, and year, all of that, right? Command who am I guess I have showed you already. It shows you the which user as you logged in, right? And for the commands, sudo and package commands I will show you. Before that, we'll see one more thing if we can perform. So where is command is very convenient in terms if you want to find any directory or any file, right? So for example, if I want to find, I am right now in the home folder, you can see it, right? So if I want to look into where is /sbin, system binaries directory, right? So this is, oh sorry, so I gave the space, right? There's no space in between. So if you type where is sbin, it will give you the path to it, right? So you can find anything like where is, just don't give the space again, I'm giving it again and again, test2.txt, right? So it will show you about where is test2.txt, right? Similarly, you can go for where is directory, where can I find the directory etc configuration files. It will give you the path. So what you can do is just copy it out from here, and copying here is Control Shift plus C. It's not Control C, it is Control plus Shift plus C, right? So similarly, pasting is also Control Shift plus V. So you can copy it and paste it here. Then again CD, because it is an absolute path, it will redirect there, right? Because we have given the absolute path. If we would have given the path like, for example, if I say where is documents, right, directory, it's not showing up because it works on the system commands. So again, if we go back, or we just go like this, right? So this was the absolute path, right? If you want to reach directly to the etc, like cd etc, we can jump into that. Why? Because we are into the home folder. So we'll see what all configuration files are in it, right? These are the directories which are blue in color, and these are the files, right? So you can get into, for example, kernel, cd kernel. I assume we can get into it. Kernel, no such file or directory is there. Okay. Okay. So it was I typed capital K, right? So it was small k. So this is how it works. Like you can use the where is command. Similarly, we have locate command as well for it. Locate etc, right? So you have to install it, right? Now the second part was of obviously installing and using packages. Now how are we going to install things? Because in order to install, you need to have the super user privilege when we talk about the Linux. So in super user, either you give the commands with sudo super user do, it stands for super user do, and apt. So this is a package, right? This is a package. I'll show you one thing before we move on to there, right? Let's go here. Okay. So this is here. So I hope you can see it. So if you will refer to the mind map, there are majorly four types of the app package installation. One is apt, one is snap, one is flat apk, one is downloaded file. For downloaded file, it is pretty explanatory. You download the .deb Debian based file for your Ubuntu, and you unpack it by the command sudo dpkg -i and file path, right? And for apt is like you install directly from the command line. The CLI reaches the server of the application, whichever you want to reach out to, and it fetches it from there, right? So, and again for update also of the system, you go for sudo apt-get update, and for upgrade you go for sudo apt-get upgrade, right? And again there is a package called snap. Some of the applications are installed by the snap package. So there should be no confusion in terms of which package or what is it we are talking about. 90% of the times we are using apt package, and we use the downloaded ones. We can say install it by giving this command, and then we have a snap package which certain applications gets downloaded by, and then we have a flat apk install, right, which the syntax of it is here, right? So coming back, we have, so I'll show you the usage of sudo in this command, because we will be installing it here and we can work on the second tab parallelly. So if you want to install something, sudo apt get install, this is the syntax, right? Sudo you have to put because you are not having currently the super user privileges, right? So once you give what you want to install, for example, you want to install flame shot, right? It is an application for taking screenshots. It is an application, so you just enter it. Now you have to give the password because you don't have the super user permissions, so you enter the password and it just starts downloading it. So it will ask you, it is a 50 MB of additional disk space it will use, whether you want to install it or not. You just press yes or no according to you. Will start working on it, right? Meanwhile, it is working on the background. What we can see is file permissions. We can talk about, earlier we talked about files having users, right, groups and others. In users also there was read, write, execute. Similarly in groups also read, write and execute. Read, write and execute, and whether it is directory or file, it is shown in here, right? So we'll go on to some of the files we have created. Documents, ls. So these are the files that we have created. So now if we remember the command, we are currently in the documents folder and we have two files. Now if you want to see the permissions of it, what we can do is ls-l, right? Earlier we did ls-al, which also showed us the hidden files, but right now we don't want to see it, right? So not an issue. Now if we deal with the test2.txt, right, it shows you the last modified date, time, user who did it, and the permissions. So first it defines it that it is not a directory, it is a file. Users, that is me, has the permissions to read and write, not execute any command over it. Then others, then a group, specific group, like what you do sometimes, you create 5 users, 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5 users. Now what you do, you put 3 users in one group, 2 users in another group. You give certain permissions to this group, which is X, and you give, or I should say A, and this group B. So to this group you give permissions to read and write, not execute, but to this group you give permissions to read and write and execute also. So this is major how the group part works in the file permission system, right? So now the question is, if you want to change the permission of this file, how can you do it? So we have two ways, right? One is the numerical way and one is the alphabet way, I should say, right? So we'll move forward with it. The major command is chmod. So this command is used for changing the permissions of a particular file, but obviously we have to give some parameter or argument before giving the file of that we have to change the permissions of this file. What we do is chmod, we give plus. We can do plus to give a permission, we can do minus to remove a permission, example. So if we take minus w, which is a write permission, right, from what, that is test2.txt, right? Okay, so if we list it again, it has removed the write permission from the group users both, right? So now the question is why it did not ask you the sudo permission, because in this session right now, you have already, in this whole session, you have already given the sudo password, right? But if you close it and open another command, another terminal, and give this command, so it will ask you the sudo privileges to change any permission in the directory, right? Simple as that. So installation has been done, right? So the apt packages itself fetches the application, right, from the behind and install it, and the syntax to it is this. And similarly, you can update or upgrade your system by typing like this: sudo apt get update. If there is any update, it will update it, right? If you press enter, it will start updating. I was expecting it to ask me whether it yes or no, so I could have typed no, but anyways, it has updated because I just downloaded it, so it is updated. And similarly, another command is there, upgrade. You can give it, right? So here it finds 25 MB of additional disk space will be used if I upgrade it. Right now I will not do it, right? And now you have downloaded the flame shot. We'll try to use the command where is flame shot. Let's see if we can find, yes. So flame shot is residing in somewhere in this directory, right? But if you want to launch flame shot, what you can do, we can try a couple of ways. We can just type flame shot, okay, and let's see if something happens. Okay, there's nothing happening. Okay, I just typed print screen. I just pressed print screen, but okay, so it started it here. Okay, so if you click it, it will take screenshot, and it just took a screenshot. But what you can do it you can customize it, go into the shortcuts and remove the default screenshot app from it, and you just go for the flame shot, right? And just give the permission to it at every time you boot the operating system, it just starts automatically. So if I give Control plus C, what you will observe that it has gone from here, right? So similarly, if I launch Firefox from here, okay, so it launches the Firefox as well, right? So this is like some things work. And coming back to the permission part, now if you want to change the permission of the user part only, right? So if you want that, you type user. If you want to add a permission, you can get plus, and currently it has read only. You want to give write and execute to it, write and execute to it, and then give the file name, right? Then we do ls/shell. So since it already had read, now we give it write and execute for the user part. This time we ran the command for user only, so it changed the permission of user only, right? So this is one way of doing it, right? For example, I'll show you on this also to remove the confusion. Chmod group plus write command. So it does not have the write command here right now. So it does have the read command only, and then just give the file path, enter it, ls-l, so it gets the write command. So this is one way. The other way is, I would say, pretty much easy, and I use it by myself more. But how does it work? It's just a bit of logic behind it. So for read, write, and execute, right? So currently we are talking about the user only. It is the binary power to it is 2:2, 2:1, and 2:0. Just listen to this logic. Don't worry. You can use directly the whatever the formula comes out of it, right? So for read permission, obviously you want to give 4 bits. For write permission, you want to give 2 bits. And for execute permission, 2 is to power 0 is always 1. Anything to power 0 is always 1. So if you want to give read, write and execute, you will add all of these, that is 7. If you want to give read and write only, you will give 4 plus 2, that is 6. And if you want to give read and execute, you will give 4 plus 1, that is 5, right? That is for users. Similarly goes for the groups, similarly goes for the others. So how will it work? That is chmod. Now if I want to change the permissions for user, group and others at the same time, right, and I want to give users the read write execute command, so what I will give, I will add all of these, 4 plus 2 plus 1, that is 7. And for group, I want to give them read and write, that is 4 plus 2 is 6. And for others, I want to give them just to read, that is 4. So what you will type is chmod, right, chmod this 764 space 764 and the file name, right. I will keep it here so you can see it. So now what you will do is, first what I will do is give 000. Let's see if that works to show you much more clearly. Okay, it worked. L. So test2.txt does not have any permission neither for users, group or others, right? Now what we decided is to give users read write execute, for group read and write, and for others just read, right? This is just that simple, read write execute 421, right? Whatever you want to give, add it out and just type it out. So for example, if we want to give this one chmod and we type 764 space test2.txt, enter, check it again. So users get the read write execute permission, which we talked about. Then group gets the read and write permission, not the execute one, the code that we typed, and the others get only the read permission, not the write and execute. So similarly, if you want to give the whole users, the groups and others the read write execute permission, it is chmod 777 test2.txt. How is it 777? Like read write execute, you add all of these. So 1 for user it becomes 7. Similarly for group again 17, and for others 1 again 17. Just enter it and just check it out. So you get all the file permissions, right? So this is the whole file permission, how it works like, right? I've shown you the packages, I've shown you the whereas command, I've shown you the how to make directory, remove directory, how to edit certain things. Obviously you can download editors. For example, I will show you one. There is one editor that is gedit. If you type it, so it is already installed. Great. So in our previous versions, we used to have to install it. So what you can do is here also, hello, my name is CyberTab, right? So it is more of a GUI form. You can just save as, save all, find and replace. Everything you find it will here. So you will save it and it will ask you the file name you want to put it in, right? Gedit file, you can just type, and you're saving it in home folder, right? Because you are already in that directory. So it is just an application, you just type the name and it launches out. So you can see that it has created a file, and you can cat if you want to just pop it out what is there. Okay, and one other thing is we have, if you want to print anything on the terminal, right, you can just type echo space CyberTab YouTube channel, right? So it will just print it out, right? So these are a couple of commands and clearing it. Just moving on to the last parts, we can see the CPU info by typing like CPU info. So for CPU info, it is a different package. You can install it like sudo apt install. Now we'll do this in this part, so we can work on that. Sudo apt install CPU info. Once you enter it, it will ask it whether you want to install it or not, and it will install it in the background, right? So I guess it has installed it. Okay. CPU info, if you launch the application. Sudo apt install tabling. So one of the major part of using any operating system or any tool or technology is to troubleshoot, right? You should learn how to troubleshoot, and you can only learn how to troubleshoot by getting your hands dirty, right? So more the practice you do, more you will learn, and you will be more confident using it, right? So in that way, you can obviously over the period of time you can master it, right? So one of the command we can learn is one is a top command, right? So top, what does it show? Okay, so it shows like a task manager which all uh, processes are running behind. So this is the process, this is the root process, which means it is a system process, and this process is run by me. So Firefox is running behind, so it shows the Firefox is running. It shows you how much CPU percentage it is taking, how much RAM is it taking, how long has it been running. And for top command, it has been just 14 seconds, 15 seconds, right? And the most important part is PID. This is known as process ID, right? So since if you want to kill certain process, like if we look into the Firefox part, if we can find it, if I go into here, so it will show you Firefox as well. The Firefox, the 8010 is the PID. What you can do is you can just type it like this: kill PID 8010. Right. Okay, kill 8010. So it is showing no such process. We might have noted down a wrong process ID. You just see. Okay. So anyways, so like this, you can see what is going on behind your, or in the task manager, or in the process phase, what is going on. And one more thing is there when we talk about the files, right? So you can zip and unzip files, right? So you can zip and unzip files, and how you can do it? You can first you can zip a file by giving command gzip, and I wonder if it is there. Okay, it is there in the system. The gzip we can use gzip and the name of the file, example test2.txt, then enter it. So what we look is, so the extension has changed to test2.txt.gz, right? So it has been zipped, or we go into the GUI format and look into the documents. So it is zipped. Now if you want to unzip it, right? If you want to unzip it, how are we going to unzip it? Just simple g unzip space g unzip test2 tab. So the file name appears and enter. So it just changed it here, right? So in this way you can use zip and unzip files, unzip to compress and decompress files. And echo I have already showed you. If you want to print anything, it prints on the screen. Then we have environment variable. So sorry, if we type env, it shows you what anything that is running in your environment of your system, right? So it shows you the user is CyberTab, the user is CyberTab, the terminal service is running this, right? And if we go up, shell, it is using this. Session has been managed by this directory, right? What is the SSH agent? Then we get couple of information which is very important, right? In the home directory it shows which is the home directory for this environment. So if you change your user, or if the environment gets changed, right, these things will be changed. So your username, it tells you, right, colors and all that you have selected, language what is being used, right? These are a couple of things that you get to know by the command env, right? And you run it in any directory, does not matter, right? One thing is that, let me get into the just home folder. The one thing is that you can add users as well. So currently the user is, I'm sorry, CyberTab, right? So how to add users? Just type sudo, which gives you the super user command, and user space the name of the user, right? If I want to add Alex, enter. Now it will ask me the password. Why? Because it is pretty elevated privilege, and in when we create a new user, right, eh, we give it like the access to the machine, right, which is very critical and sensitive in nature. So it asks you the password. So I give the password CyberTab, so it has created the new user. So now it is asking for me, who is creating the new user, that is Alex, a password for it. I'll just create a password. Again, I will type it. Now it will ask me to type his full name. I'll just repeat everything. Same, Alex, 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 Alex. Is this information correct? Yes. Done. Right. So now you have two users in this system. Right. Now you have two users in the system. Now I will show you how. Just, but currently I'm logged in as CyberTab in the system, but in the terminal I can change the. You can see it here, CyberTab, right? Sudo su Alex. No. I typed it wrong. Sudo. So sudo is super user do, and su is basically changing the user to Alex. It will ask the password of CyberTab, because CyberTab is changing it, right? So now the user has been changed to Alex. You see it clearly, right? The user has been changed to Alex. Now if you go ls, the permission has been denied, because I have to give permissions accordingly to the user that I have created, right? And also, like, it is a granular approach. You have to define what all permissions you can give it to Alex, because it can be anyone, like your friend, your colleague, who can have only certain level of privileges, right? So coming back to the CyberTab user, right? Now if I want to delete that user, right? If I want to delete it, but how will I know that how many users are logged in right now? So there is a command finger, right? So two users are logged in, right? Name CyberTab, but one of them is Alex, right? Because it is in the same terminal. If I close it and I open it again, then it will show up, right? And if I go for finger Alex to know the session time in 1 minute, does it logged in? So it will show me the login is Alex. It is in the directory this, and we haven't set this. Shell is this, and home phone is Alex that we typed it into, right? So now I want to delete this user that I have created. How I can delete it? Just like simple things. We can delete it by giving again sudo, right? Sudo user delete. For that I have to close the terminal of Alex because it is having a session. Sudo user delete -r- what is the username of Alex? So it has deleted, because, and it is just giving the error that mail Alex was not found, because we already didn't set it, right? So if I go again finger Alex, no such user has been found. But if I go for finger CyberTab, so it shows me how long I have been logged in and this and that, right? So this is how we deal with the user part also, and we can see it by different commands, right? And now there are a couple of commands that are out of this scope of the video, but I will show you in any upcoming video, which deals with SSH, put request, get request, right? And wget is I can show you right now, but for these two we need a server to be hosted. So if there is a server that has been hosted somewhere in your network, or you have the network reachability, then you can get the SSH access. SSH, your name, your user, at the IP address of the net, whatever the server is, right? And then enter it, then give the password, and you will get a shell. So what does shell means? So this is a shell. This is a shell, right? Here you can execute different commands and perform different functions, right? Similarly, put file and get file is used for file transfers. And when you are connected to a server, you can put and get the files through the put and get commands through the shell only, right? You can reach out in the directory in whichever you want to bring that file into, or from whichever the file you want to transfer it, right? And just some of the last commands that we can look into is top command I have already shown you, right? And ps command shows us that the status of the running user, right? The running user is CyberTab. It shows the status that I have the process ID is this, TTY is this, time is this, CMD is this. I don't know why time is not being updated, but I'm sure that there is something that we can work upon it. So one thing I will show you more, if I launch Firefox and if I type top, then there will be an ID for Firefox, that is 12598, right? So if I just cancel it out, clear it out, 12598 it was, 12598. And if I want to check the status of it, just to know what is going on in this, ps is the command and this is the process ID. So it gives the status. The command is there. It has been executed from this directory, right? Time has been just 5 seconds. Status, and it is not available now, right? And the process ID is this, right? So, right. So these were the couple of commands that we worked upon, and I know it is not exhaustive list, and I also would like to say that there is no need to learn the whole suite of commands, right? Just know the fundamentals which we covered in mind map, know the technology that is used everywhere in the world, which is virtualization, that we covered also, know the file system or file hierarchy that is used in Linux, right? That is also we covered, and know the fundamentals of using command line, right? So you can practice as much as you can. There is a sheet that is provided in the mind map for the commands. Basic things are I have created almost, but again I would say you will get to know all the fundamentals from this video, but at the at the end of the day, you yourself has to go on the internet, put your fingers on your keyboard, and just explore, right? Explore things. Since it is a virtualization, the operating system is hosted on virtualization software. Even if it breaks out, even if it stops working, you can delete the virtual machine and again start it out. That this kind of approach is best to learn anything, right? And explore things that you you might face in the industry in the next 2 or 3 or 4 years, or if you want to test something, if you're already in the industry, best of the chances that you can use it for as well. You can use it for sandboxing as well, or anything, right? So I guess I will take this is the end of the course, but before you guys move ahead, I will just let you know that I will drop down the mind map link in the YouTube section, and hopefully it will redirect you to the LinkedIn page. So please do like, comment, and please do follow the LinkedIn page and drop a comment on the post. And whatever comment, if it can be bad or good, whatever you like. If there is any improvement required, right? If you did not understand any part of the video, right? You can please comment on the YouTube comment, and I myself will answer those questions, right? And also I urge you guys who all other see that question, if they know what the other guy wants to ask and they know what is the answer, please do answer that, right? In this way you can only build the community, and I again urge you to go onto the LinkedIn page and just follow it to get the new updates again, new updates as soon as they are released, right? Hope you guys have liked this course so far. This was my first course to record, right? So there might be some of the mistakes in terms of recording it, the mic, right? And but I assure you that these will be improved over the time. But this was the course for Linux, which wasn't necessary. But now what will be coming is the next video, or the next videos will be coming regarding hacking, right? Hacking the login, Windows login, hacking into Active Directory, right? These kind of stuff is coming, which will be shorter videos, 10 to 15 minutes videos, making you learn new things, right? Since you have learned all of this, so I don't need to worry that how you are going to perform these. You will know how to mount an USB, right? And install operating system, right? So new videos will be coming. Till then, take care, stay updated, stay patched, and right, please like down the video below if you find it useful. Comment whatever you feel like, and we are putting a lot of efforts, right? So do like, subscribe, and comment for CyberTab channel, and go on to the LinkedIn page, and obviously follow it. Take care.